Every time the sales gong rings in the office, some salesperson becomes the revenue hero. But that gong sound, all that means to your finance team is the hard and difficult task of collecting money has only just begun. My name is Anthony Venus. I'm the CEO and co-founder of YayPay. We use machine learning to automate your receivables and collections management, and we're turning those finance teams into the revenue heroes. Because these teams are spending hours each day on manual, repetitive tasks for collections and dispute management, like sending out all those email reminders and phone calls. The sheer amount of work involved is just crushing. When it comes to forecasting receivables without the data, it's nothing more than guesswork. And without the right collaboration between the customer, sales, and finance, finance is held hostage to a world of late payments and inefficiency. So, YayPay is making big changes in the back office. It all starts here with the data. So imagine your finance teams are dealing with thousands of outstanding invoices. To them, each customer looks pretty much the same, like the dots here on this chart. It's hard to see who's going to pay you faster or slower, who's most at risk, who's least at risk, and what happens is they spend too much time on those customers that will pay you anyway, and not enough time on those that are most at risk. So with YayPay, we segment those same customers by payer behavior. And with that, we're able to serve up the most appropriate messages and the most appropriate incentives to encourage faster payment. We use that same data to give you an accurate receivables forecast. We start by integrating all of your receivables data from your ERP, CRM, spreadsheets, and emails all onto one centralized accounts receivables CRM, connecting the payments workflow between sales, the customer, and finance. Your customer clicks on a simple statement link, downloading invoices where necessary, raising disputes, and making payments using one of many convenient methods. With automatic payment communications, we put your cash collection on autopilot. No more emails and phone calls because our software is doing all the work for you automatically behind the scenes. That's why in the last 7 months since launch, we've helped customers just like this collect $150 million 20% faster. With an investment team with Fifth Third Bank and QED, coupled with a leadership team with years of experience in enterprise software development and financial technology, we're now working on a multi-billion-dollar opportunity to rewrite the operating system for back-office finance. But if you're wondering what YayPay really means, it's the joyful sound you make when you get paid. Thank you. Hi.
Great presentation. Thanks for being here. Let's talk about selling to accounts receivable. In my experience, it's not a department that has a ton of budget, even though obviously it's integrally tied to revenue. So how do you break through the inertia and the sales cycle of selling to this back office function?
Sure. So 9 times out of 10 is an existing process of spreadsheets and people. So we sell into, depending upon the size of company, we're selling in from any company that's $10 million up to $1 billion. And we find for companies that are under $100 million, the conversations with the controller and the CFO, then a level down. So we're kind of selling up and selling down. But we move up to further up the chain, it tends to be a head of receivables and different budgets that we're working from. So the value prop we're selling is reduction in DSO by about 20%. And also, though, the value prop for some companies is just simply automation and saving on headcount. But yeah, we're doing that through direct sales, but also through partnerships with banks and ERPs.
You discussed your value proposition as getting money in 20% faster.
Correct.
However, part of what the AI and the machine processing is doing is trying to determine who's a late payer, right?
Correct, yeah.
So how are you, is it using incentives to getting the money in faster, or is it just determining in the pyramid, where you should be spending the incentives to get the money in?
Yes, it's a bit of both. It's using incentives, but it's also, frankly, just communicating more often and sending out particular types of messages for particular types of customers to also get reactions and payments. So we also monitor if people aren't opening those emails in the first place, it could mean one of two things. They're not engaged or they've left the company, and that also helps us as well inform our supplier customers what's going on.
You shared some statistics and you showed us some clients. Tell us a little bit about the customer experience and how quickly a new user gets up and going and they're proficient.
Sure. It's 30 days from the sale to integration, and we're connecting with QuickBooks, Intact, and NetSuite. We're also, though, doing some larger integrations with Oracle and SAP customers, but our prime market is actually on those ones where we built connectors with. So it's 30 days to get going, and that's all about integrating the data, training up the staff on how to use it, and so forth. And of course, our goal is to bang that down further as we progress.
Could you quickly describe your personal information strategy? Obviously, you have access to a lot of customer information. So what are you putting in place to protect or mitigate against that liability?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, how are you dealing with PII? You have a lot of access to information on behalf of the customer.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of data protection in place. We've so far avoided Europe for this case, and we've stuck to the US. We're working that as we go.
You must look at the historical data of how long it took particular parties to pay in order to build the engine of saying how many times I communicate, et cetera. So it seems as if the value add to a customer would come over time, or else it had to be a prior vendor or prior purchaser.
Correct, yes. The software gets smarter as time goes by. It does, yeah.
Great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I met Derek in Chicago. Derek's working to buy a home for his family, and he's funding this by working in college admissions, doing ride sharing, and food delivery. I had breakfast with Karen in Cleveland. She's supplementing her disability income by pet sitting and doing various different jobs that she finds on Craigslist. I had lunch with Brittany in Atlanta. She's paying off her student debt by working shifts at a music streaming company, walking dogs, and doing pet sitting. And I recently had dinner with this gentleman in Savannah, Georgia. He's funding his retirement by working retail and delivering food for Instacart. You can call this gentleman Jeff. I just call him Dad. He's my father. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a massive workforce transformation taking place in the US, with over 70 million individuals today in the US, growing to over 125 million by 2025, generating over half of the jobs in the US and over $6 trillion of earnings. And the majority of these individuals will not be able to pay their monthly bills from a single source of income, will not have benefits, and will have no clear path of income ascension. Steady has spent countless hours focused on understanding the pain points of these individuals and how to develop a solution that solves as many of these problems as possible with a core focus on income. How do we help an individual who's underemployed make more money? And how do we help an individual who's fully employed find an income path that's going to help them to ensure that they have a clear path of ascension all the way through retirement? This is how we do it. We utilize our advanced algorithmic matching to understand an individual's interests, qualifications, and behaviors, and output to them the right job opportunities. We couple that with our core user functionality, which includes scheduling to help an individual optimize their workday based on their availability, provide a clear and consistent view of their income, and guide them on the time and resource that they should dedicate into obtaining additional qualifications to help them ensure that they're on a path to higher income potential. Steady is launching in Q1 of 2018 in partnership with leading financial institutions and many of the US's largest employers. I want each of you to think about how many of these people you've already interacted with today. You woke up this morning, you said hello to the housekeeping staff. You got your coffee from Starbucks, from a barista. You asked the hotel security guard how to find this ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here at Money 2020 talking about the future of money, and Steady is focused on delivering the American dream under the future of work. Thank you.
So other than your dad, what channel are you going to acquire customers?
So we have three main channels for user acquisition. The first is the financial institution partner, where we found that FIs are very aware of the trickle-down impact that this workforce transformation is going to have on them. For the standpoint of prospective credit quality deterioration as individuals have stagnating or decreasing income levels, and additionally, relative to the credit models that are predominantly developed today around steady W-2 verifiable income, where you have an individual who's working in this workforce that has an average of about 40% fluctuation in monthly income, hence the term steady. The second channel, I apologize, is when we started talking with our workforce partners, the large-scale employers, we went to them initially and said, we want to give you workforce, okay? They came back to us and said, wonderful, give us workforce, but we have underemployed workers that are part-time that need more work. Can we give you our workers as well? The last piece is direct acquisition, but the primary two are the primary channels.
Adam, thank you for focusing on this problem. It's great to see a company that's actually looking to make a positive change, and I think we've seen companies be more successful because they can gain momentum. People are rooting for them, so bravo. Can you talk a little bit about the team, your background, and who you've brought on, and how that's going to help you be successful?
So we are self-financed. We believe very heavily in this business model. I'm a third-time entrepreneur focused initially on emerging Asia, helping develop local entrepreneurialism in developing parts of Asia, and then built a media business and sold that a year and a half ago. My chairman has built 3 very large multi-billion-dollar businesses, including Synapse Group, and the most recent being the largest pharmaceutical discount card business in the U.S. with over 13 million subscribers in a JV with United Healthcare. So focus very heavily on serving the underserved market. We have about a 20-person team today, distributed between New York, San Francisco, and Atlanta, and very top-heavy.
The business model, who are you being paid by? By the employer that you're then finding the worker for?
Yeah, so two parts today. So first off, we're heavily focused on scaling our workforce, and our belief is we're shooting into a massive market, $6.5 trillion of earnings. So to the extent that we can generate scale, we have a lot of smart people around the table. We're confident we're going to find ways to optimize income potential. But initially focused on, yes, workforce affiliate fees that we get from the employers. They all have standard fee arrangements in place. We go down the path of least resistance and take those fees. The banks also pay us a license fee against the data that we're providing relative to income to better their credit decisioning.
Seems like a very clear top-down approach. Could you describe a little bit about the bottom-up? Are you engaging folks like Fiverr or Mechanical Turk?
Yeah, so absolutely, but what we're trying to create is actionable income potential initially. So there will be a marketplace of opportunities where people can go and they can put out their profile and they can hope that work comes to them, but the hit rate is not terribly high, right? These are people that we're dealing with that an increase of $10 to $12 an hour makes a huge difference in life. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Hanley, the CEO of Tomorrow. I'm here to talk to you about a company that we've built in order to create an important social issue. If we can bring up the slides, you can see a little bit of the problem that we're looking to solve. So first of all, right now in America, 2/3 of Americans don't have a will. And if you're under 40, that's 80%. So 4 out of 5 parents of young children have not established guardianship for their kids. 3/4 of Americans don't own life insurance, creating unneeded economic stability. A trust outlines the roles and responsibilities to take care of your family over time, and yet only 5% of Americans have one. When we looked at this challenge, we really thought, well, how do we get all these things in people's hands? Why don't they do it? It's because it's bureaucratic, it's expensive, and it's time-consuming. And if we bring up the app, you're going to see exactly what we did to solve this. So inside Tomorrow, you come in, and Tomorrow provides a will and trust completely for free. Come into the app, no strings attached, and you can tell us a little bit about your family and your finances, and we'll create the documents. So in the Family tab, you'll see, if we can bring up the demo, you'll see that I have my wife and my kids all available in here. I invite them in, and we start creating our Tomorrow together. Under roles, I learn what guardians and executors and trustees do by watching animated videos that explain that. And then I choose guardians by learning first what's needed for a guardian in my state according to my laws, and I choose someone like my sister Celeste. Now I can opt to actually send her a text message or email telling her about what I'd like her to do and invite her to join in here at Tomorrow. But just basically saying, I think you'd make a great guardian, and would you be up for that? In Tomorrow, you take pictures of your belongings and decide who gets what. So a piece of art that my wife painted, I can decide, you know what, Max wants that more than Miles. You can add other family members in there. You sync all of your assets, and we help you fund your trust so that your family's all set up for financial success. Then, down in the will section, I actually am going to create a will right now based off the needs of my family, all the desires that I set up inside of Tomorrow, and then the laws of my state. So you can see here the last will and testament of me, David John Hanley. Trust is very similar. Then we take all the data that you shared with us and actually recommend just the right amount of life insurance based on your debt, based on your assets, and based on the ages of your kids, make sure everyone pays for college. And then it only takes 3 minutes to apply for life insurance inside the app. So you come in, we leverage all of your will and trust data. We are a nationwide broker appointed with 9 different carriers, AIG, Prudential, Protective, and 6 others, with more coming on here. So you just pick the one that you want. Once you buy it, then it's done. We have an amazing team, 13 people. We've built and sold 4 companies, including to the NFL, to Amazon, and to Deloitte. And get your will. That's it.
Great job, Dave.
Thanks.
It seems like a very interesting acquisition strategy for customer. Can you just describe how that's working for you and what you're doing about it?
You bet. So we have 15,000 users that have come in the last 9 weeks to join tomorrow, 3,000 in the last 10 days. So the business model is, instead of competing head-to-head in financial services with other brokers, we're effectively transferring all of your margin to Google and Facebook. Instead, we're building a side door where we're learning about you and your family and finances, recommending right-fit financial products, of which term life insurance is the first, and helping you do that. So our CAC is now $9. It was $12 last month and $13 the month before, and that's for a registered user. About 2% of people buy a life insurance product so far, usually in the first 3 days.
And let's say the person dies.
Yeah.
Right? So are you then the party that makes sure the right photo ends up with Miles versus someone else?
So you invite your own trustees and guardians. We teach you who those are. We actually teach people what's involved in that,
Yep.
And then they actually execute it themselves. We're not a trust company.
Right, but you have to notify of all the details in the particular...
Yes, which is why the invitation feature is key. We started at 10%. Now 30% of people who get added to tomorrow actually get invited, and they learn what the role is. So you don't end up in a Manchester by the Sea scenario where a guardian doesn't know that they're a guardian. Super important.
Tell us a little bit more about your business model. How are you making money? Is it the
So-
providers that are
so-
getting access
so-
through the app? or-
No, so we keep all the data to ourselves. We are the licensed broker. We make $600 on average right now per life insurance policy that is bought through the app, and we'll continue to have that deeply integrated experience, right fit, best products bought through the app.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your team.
So I built and sold a couple of companies, Shelfari to Amazon and Banyan Branch to Deloitte. I was previously worked in financial inclusion, did my Fulbright with Mohammed Yunus and Grameen Bank, worked in trying to make financial access to the poor, trying to bring my digital experience together with my financial experience and have impact by solving what we think of as a huge, huge societal problem.
So let's say I live another 20 years, hopefully, right? You're going to maintain this for me, and you're going to update it. And are you charging me a fee to do that?
There's no fees. Everything's completely free. You can come in and change the order of your guardians, which usually requires a call to your lawyer if you want to change something. The wills and trusts that you print out, you unfortunately have to print a will, wet sign it, keep it.
So it's a one-time.
And you do that, and every time you make a change, unfortunately, you have to do that. But I'm a member of the Uniform Law Commissions on electronic wills. We're working on it, so call your governor, make it happen.
Got it. So no ongoing expense burden to you for maintaining this set of customers.
Yeah, we don't charge anyone
But no,
going
your-
on,
your
and also,
costs.
well, yeah, and effectively our marginal costs are zero once we built the assets, and so then we can continue to deliver value to people.
But you maintain it. I mean, if I don't come back for 20 years and then I die, you maintain this.
Yeah, well, so the will is maintained by you at your house, or if it's a document that's signed and kept, then you can do that with your notary. So yeah, that may change in the future. We're working on that.
Great job.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Thanks.
We issue premium credit cards to trustworthy new-to-credit customers. Hi, I'm Elnor, founder and CEO of Credit Stacks, and let me share with you why I'm here today. I sold a company I founded, came to the States, and couldn't get a credit card. I successfully sold a company and couldn't get a simple credit card, and I'm not the only one. Every year, 3 million new-to-credit prime customers are mistreated by the banks just because they're new to credit. Because it doesn't matter if you're a Google engineer, a McKinsey consultant, or even an investor. Without a credit history, you're a nobody, and you're not getting a credit card. This is a $15 billion missed opportunity every year. This is also where we come in. We look at your future instead of your past. Essentially, over the past 2 years, we've built a system on the back of over 200 meaningful data points that truly understands, or helps us truly understand, the person behind the numbers. And this allows us to issue the $5,000 CreditStax credit card the day that someone enters the country, before they have an SSN, a US address, or even a local bank account. Because unlike the banks that look for any reason not to trust you, our technology allows us to identify clusters of underserved customers whom we can trust and treat as the prime customers that they are from day one. Now, I know what you're thinking. Credit cards are an extremely tough business, and you're absolutely right. Over the past 2 years, we've worked to break through all the barriers to entry, and I'm now proud to announce that within 2 weeks, we start shipping credit cards. That's right, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to start shipping credit cards to actual customers. On top of this, we've built unique B2B2C acquisition channels that drive customers to us at less than $10 per account, instead of the hundreds of dollars traditional card companies spend to acquire a customer. And we did all of this by relying on an exceptionally experienced founding team. We have a former FDIC division director, a former head of buyer-side PayPal, buyer-side risk, 2 serial entrepreneurs, including one who architected some of the largest IT projects in the world, and we're supported by a first-tier advisory board. Former EVP loyalty for Chase Credit Cards, founder and CEO of CardWorks, one of the largest card processing companies in the country, and founder and CEO of Fraud Sciences, a $170 million PayPal acquisition. We're launching our cards in 2 weeks, and we'd be delighted to take you on this journey with us. So if you also think it's time to start treating new-to-credit customers the way they deserve to be treated, come and talk with us. Thank you.
Great job. Let's talk about lifetime value. So you're intercepting these customers when they have a really pointed need for credit. No one's considering them credit worthy. 3 years later, they will have established credit. American Express will be after them, Chase Sapphire, all the cards that many of us have in our wallet. How do you keep them? How do you keep them when they actually are valuable?
So I'll start off by saying that we're actually profitable after the second month that the customer is with us. So in terms of lifetime, assuming a customer stays with us 6 months, we're very well off in terms of financial positioning. But beyond that, we think that the way we keep our customers is by providing them with a very supportive construct of a credit card. So think about teaching a customer from day zero with a personal concierge how to work with credit, providing you with basically on-the-spot advice, because a big part of what we do is a mobile app. It's actually a necessary part of the application process or activation process. When you get the card in the mail, you have to download our app, take a picture of the card. And that allows us to teach you how to work with credit with personalized advice, to provide value around every transaction that you make. Look, you don't need to pay for car insurance, for rental car insurance. You already have that in the card, and a whole lot of other things. So build an experience that essentially makes you feel as if we add value to every transaction that you make, to everything that you do, such that you sort of feel naked if you're trying to work with anyone else.
Could you talk a little bit about your strategic partnerships and how that might differentiate you in market?
Strategic partnerships
so for example, there are a couple of logos there that we saw. So, what makes you different from some of the other issuing solutions that are out in market at this point?
Sure. So the logos there are actually companies we worked for. But the thing that makes us very different, first of all, we are the only company in this country that is capable of issuing a premium credit card on day zero. The day somebody gets into the country, before, again, they have an SSN, an address, a bank account. Nobody else can do that. Beyond that, the way our risk works allows us to start with a fairly high, credit line, and then constantly check, because we run basically credit checks every time, credit analysis every time you do a transaction, constantly check that you're actually still the person we thought we were giving a card to, so constantly verify that. So basically, the way we're positioning this is we can trust you faster than anyone, and we verify it much faster than anyone else.
So you must have some more sophisticated know your customer AML.
Yes.
So talk us through that a little bit, how you can do that on day zero and someone else can't.
Sure. So I'll use just 6 data points to tell a quick story of how we take someone. So take someone who's, let's say, a director at eBay in China. And this is going to be very simplified. That person today goes on Amex's website, tries to apply for a credit card. They see no social security, an IP address from China, and that's game over. In our case, we look at that person and we say, okay, the IP address comes from China, that's great, but it belongs to eBay in China. And then, so what does that say about the person? And then we looked at the email address, and that's ebay.com, and a whole host of other factors like that that essentially allow us to build a picture where the only conclusion is, okay, you are in fact, let's say in this case, moving to the US to be a director at eBay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Elnor, and all of our startup finalists. Now it's finally that time for you, our audience, to pick our grand prize winner. Go to your Money20 app, click on the startup pitch voting, as you can see here on the left-hand side. Remember, you have 5 minutes to vote. Start the time now. Now, while we're waiting, I'm going to ask our judges to share some of their sage advice for our audience. So you think of someone like a Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. They all have stories. And Don Valentine, one of the most successful VCs in the world that founded Sequoia Capital, has said that he laments that startups don't really share their stories well. They talk about the facts and figures, the scalability. How important do you think it is for a startup to actually have a story that's really powerful and poignant for you to invest in their dream?
Well, I'd liken it very much like to an author or somebody creating a film. You know, speaking from experience is very important. It's one of the major questions we'll ask much of our startups in our diligence process. Do you have experience in this domain? Do you come from it, and have you felt these problems? And so that's a very important kind of indicator for us as it relates to, is this a greenhorn going into a new virgin market in their mind, or do they actually have experience in building something or feeling that exact problem? So I think it's a very important element in messaging across your process of either fundraising or business development. I know this problem, I've experienced it, and I'm the person that can fix it.
Nice.
And I think you can add to that passion. I mean, generally, and some of these problems might sound boring, but there's a passion about what a big issue it is and what can be made more efficient about it.
Yeah, I think we saw at least 3 great examples here today of people harnessing the power of personal narrative and actually personal photographs. I mean, these were really good presentations, and part of it was the personal nature of what came across. My father, his family. I mean, these are evocative narrative elements of a pitch that we find incredibly effective.
Passion was the word that I was going to use as well, and that's why I was asking questions about the user experience and the connectivity to the problem they're trying to solve. It's very personal. They're deeply connected to it, and I think that makes the creativity of the solutions better, and that's why they're here on the stage.
Nice, thank you. I was watching another interview by Mark Andreessen, another top VC, and he was saying there's about 20,000 startups every year that are looking for funding. About 300 of them are pretty viable, but they only invest in about 20. What are some of the things that those 20 people are doing right to get this investment from like Andreessen Horowitz?
Well, we're a little bit earlier than Andreessen, so our check's much smaller. So I would say, I mean, there's 3 things that we're typically looking for, and number 1 is just making sure there's a technical team that's available there on site and they're not proxying that to a third party. Secondly, actually touching on your previous point, is they understand the problem, they've experienced it, or at least they have a team that understands the problem. And I think number 3 is gumption. At the end of the day, there's really no question as it relates to what's the next step for them. There's always, yes, I'm moving on to the next step. If there was a 4th, I think it's focus. We often see a very laser-focused solution that's in market. So for us, our value proposition is effectively to extend a corporate ecosystem globally, understand some of the challenges that they face, and for the most part, this is very applicable to an enterprise-facing entity or startup, but we certainly do also invest in consumers. So I think for our main, outcome is to understand, by way of both the market players and some of the corporate relationships that we have, is this a true problem in market, and then validate that against the technology.
And I think you could add to that market opportunity, which is basically, okay, you can build the greatest tech platform out there, but if nobody's willing to buy it or buy it for what you have to sell it for by the time you have that overhead, it's going to take too long. So you have to have the wind at your back with the right team, with the right tech platform, and a way to go to market.
Yeah, I would only add that I think for firms like Andreessen and Oak and our firm, ambition is incredibly important. You want to start by talking about something achievable, but if at the end of the day you don't have a chance to really change the world, ultimately it's all so hard. Starting a company is so hard that it really has to be worth it.
Great. This kind of piggybacks on that point. I was reading that there's only 197 unicorns that are valued at over $1 billion. So from getting the investment to actually building a company to become a unicorn, any differentiating factors in your opinion?
It's actually even worse than that, because becoming a unicorn isn't actually the goal. The goal is to sell or go public for that amount. Having some venture capitalist decide that you're worth $1 billion is a lot different than actually being worth $1 billion. We see it come down to teams, and I think I'll just say one thing about teams, so it's not just a platitude. The team that got you from 0 to 5 million in revenue will not be the team that gets you from 50 to 100. The layering, the replacing, the augmenting of a team, that has to be the continual focus of the entrepreneur. It's hard. Loyalty is important. But you've got to understand that everybody hits a ceiling, and you've got to push through it and build the team for the future.
Great. Let's thank our judges for their sage advice. All right, time is up. Here to present our grand prize winner is the Money 2020 Director of Content, Chris Souther.
Thank you, Christopher. I have to be careful. I almost knocked them all over by stepping on this square right here. Thank you, Christopher. So we get the question frequently, how many startups do you look at for a startup pitch each year? And the short answer is probably 1,000. The slightly longer answer is we look at 1,000. We do hard research on several hundred. We have personal conversations with probably half that number. And then from that, we pick 24 companies who pitched at Startup Pitch at Money 2020 yesterday in either the morning session or the afternoon session. So these 4 companies that you just heard from represent a tremendous field of entrepreneurs doing some amazing things across the spectrum of fintech. So I'm very excited to be here. I know they are very excited to be here, and we hope you are too. So now, I would like to announce the winner of Startup Pitch at Money 2020 2017. The winner will receive $40,000 in cash, a very nice trophy if I don't knock it over, and the title of Startup Pitch Money 2020 Grand Prize winner. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I actually have an envelope. The winner is Steady. Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. Gonna take some pictures?
Terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh,
turn around. There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.